you ever heard the phrase that without the night you wouldn't see the stars? Well, in watercolour it's a case of without the dark you wouldn't see the light. You wouldn't see the sparkle and freshness of a really gorgeous watercolour without some good dark in there. How do you get those lovely juicy darks without just picking up a tube of very boring black paint? Well, there are lots of ways, and if you stick around, I'll tell you how. My name's Liz Chaderton. I'm a professional watercolour artist based in Berkshire, and every week I bring you a tip, trick or technique that I wish someone had told me when I started painting. So this week it's all about mixing juicy, yummy darks. Before we go on to mixing our own juicy darks, why don't we just check out what you can get straight out of a tube? And there are 3 standard black watercolours. We've got lamp black, and lamp black used to be made from the soot out of oil lamps, so it's sometimes called carbon black, and it's a very neutral, sort of opaque black. There's ivory black, which very sadly used to be made out of the burnt tusks of elephants. It is sometimes called bone black. Luckily, not anymore. It's far softer and more transparent than the lamp black, but still very neutral. And the big problem with straight out of the tube blacks is that they dry flat and dead looking. They're so neutral, they've just got no life to them. The third one you might come across is called Mars black, and that granulates a lot. So if you like that in your work, you might want to do mixes with it. And I see absolutely nothing wrong with using tube black to mix colours, but on its own it's flat and boring. What some people use instead is something like neutral tint, which is really more dark grey. Let's just thin that out so it's quite soft. Actually, let's thin these so you can see the difference. And it comes more almost to a sort of violet-y colour. And the other one that people use is Payne's Grey, and again, used excessively it can be really deadening to your paintings, but again has a place. And if you see as I thin it out how blue it is compared to, say, the blacks or that neutral tint. So those are the ones you'll probably come across, but they all have a few issues. So let's look at mixing some of our own. I reckon when we're mixing our own darks, we've got 4 different possibilities of places to start and think about. And the first is adding the primaries together. We know from our colour theory, and if you didn't see the film on colour mixing, do take a look at it, because I think it's really good to understand. But we know that if we mix blue, and that's French ultramarine, and red, that's alizarin, and yellow, I'm just going to get some, this is quinacridone gold. The theory says if we mix blue, I've got the blue there, yellow, we get green, and then some red. Ooh, that just gave me brown, so I need a little bit more blue in there. We mix those three and we will get black. Let me thin that out slightly so you can see what it looks like. And if you want to get a really dark, you have to use a lot of pigment and a little water to get a real black. More water and you'll end up with the grey. And the great thing about this is that you can make it warmer or cooler depending on what you need. So this is our first, let's put a few pluses here. Red and yellow and blue make black. The other thing that we saw is that colours opposite each other on the colour wheel are called complementary colours, and when you mix complementary colours you get black. So blue and orange will give you black. And the one that everybody loves, because it's such a versatile one, is what's known as Fum Bum. Brilliant. And that is French ultramarine plus burnt umber. Fum Bum. So if you hear someone say, oh, I'm using the Fum Bum palette, you will know what they're talking about. So let's put some French ultramarine there and some burnt umber. Let's see if this works. I think I'd already got some some French ultramarine on there because it looked virtually black coming out of the tube. There. So you've got the brown and the blue mixed together, a great dark. And again, you can veer it off to either side by mixing in a bit more of one or a bit more of the other. Love that combination, brilliant for painting animals. The other one that I particularly love is French ultramarine. Spread that out so you can see the colour of it. Watercolour. And burnt sienna. Absolutely love burnt sienna, so really orangey brown. And we know that brown and blue mixed together will make black. Absolutely fabulous combination. So let me just write that there for you. Burnt sienna. You don't have to just use French ultramarine, though it is very good. Other colour that mixes really well is Andanthrone blue, and that's a bit more neutral. Let me just pop it there for you. A little bit more neutral, not quite as warm. I mean, it's not a million miles away from French ultramarine, but it mixes beautifully, so that's another great one to go for. Okay, red and green as a combination. One of my very favourites is alizarin crimson. It's such a fab colour. Let me show you. Oh, I love alizarin, so beautiful. And to mix that with something like a phthalo green, so really lovely transparent, very strong green. Viridian is another great colour to mix it with. And those together make just the most super dark. Now I've put too much red in there, so if there's too much red, let's just introduce more of that green, and you start to get that brilliant, really cool dark. So that was phthalo green, and I'll just put aliz there. Really super combination of a very cool, nice transparent dark. Another one you might rather enjoy is Perylin Green. If you've not come across it, absolutely fabulous colour. And there is Perylin Maroon, beautifully transparent. Let me show you those colours. So very dark, far less strident green than the phthalo. And there is Perylin Maroon. Let me just write those. So we'll say Perylin, and that's maroon and green. And together, let's bring those in, they make a fabulous dark and beautifully transparent. So reds and greens work really well together. Gorgeous. And then our fourth and final combination is the final complementaries, which would be purple and yellow. However, if we use something like dioxin purple, and you think, oh, well, we'd just bung in some of that Quin Gold that we used before, it just makes actually a really lovely colour. Why don't I show you? But it's not a black. So we've got our yellow, lovely, and we've got our purple. Have to be careful because the purple is so dominant. I'll put a bit more down there because we're going to use it in a second. But mixed together, it makes a sort of really rich, lovely brown, but nowhere near going to black. There's nothing you can do about that. So what you need if you want to base your black on a purple, or your dark on a purple, is actually to add green. So something like Perylin Green, which we saw over here, with that purple will make a most fantastic dark. Really lovely. So let's put that, we'll put a big no across that, and we'll go Diox purple, and that was Perylin Green. A combination that I absolutely love, but the truth is that it's a grey, not a black, is our Diox purple. Let's get that lid on in a second. And sap green. So I've got a little bit of sap green here. Now sap green is a lot lighter, as you can see. And you mix those together and you get a beautiful grey, but it is definitely grey, not black, however strong you mix those. I have painted a purple and green elephant, and it was beautifully grey. So that is a fabulous combination. So rather than going the purple yellow route, think about a purple green combination for getting really lovely dark. And I hope that has given you lots of ideas. So when you are painting and you've got your palette, look in there and work out how you can use the colours that are already in your painting to mix and form beautiful, rich, fascinating darks that bring something to the party, rather than going for these tube darks that just put holes in your paper that are very flat and uninteresting.